caught it in there. Wait for me! You're out, you're recording.
I know, turn the shit off. All right, so I've got my ARP hardware laid out here. I got my nuts, and my nuts have a little bit of thread lubrication on it. I got my cylinders mocked up, ready to go. We just built those. I got my rockers set up here. Obviously new bushings, obviously new hardware, and obviously these are ground to match those. And then up here I've got my snap-on mat, I got my screwdriver, and I have all my circlips ready to go for the engine. So let's get after this. All right, so if you remember, we're gonna be building left to right. First thing we need to do is we need to rotate the top dead center here. I'll grab a 17 and let's come up this way because it's a shorter stroke. So right about there.
I like getting her collar up on the shirt. You're like in the 80s.
My collar is up on my shirt. I didn't even notice my collar was up on my shirt.
Let's put it down for the video.
You can put it, no, because then you're gonna mess up my day's been going so well, I don't wanna put my collar up because what if that messes up my flow? All right, so first thing we're gonna do, slide this bad boy in. Of course, the camera's right in the way of where I need to see. That's fine. So I can find the center of that. I need a light. Grab a light. When you get my age, you need as much light as possible. There we go. We can see now. All right, so that's pushed in. And then I'm probably gonna put the people on the other side because they're gonna wanna see this part. So what I like to do now, I need to pop my circlip in. So let me grab one. Same deal as before. Now I've seen people do this a bunch of different ways. So I've seen them saran wrap the engine. I've seen them do all kinds of crazy stuff. I'll show you how I do it. So how I do it is I rotate my engine down because we have this wonderful, amazing thing called gravity. If I'm gonna lose a pin, if I've got my engine up in the upright position, if I'm gonna lose a circlip, it's gonna fall down on the engine. We don't want that. So if we lose a circlip, we want it to go on the ground. So basically, I'm just gonna take this like that. I'm gonna put it in, I'm gonna rotate it off of the edge there. Just like that. She's in. That's simple. And then we'll just make sure we're seated, which we are. And then we need to make sure that our cylinder head gasket release are there. We can rotate our engine back up. Slide that baby home. And we'll just take our cylinder head nuts, fake cylinder head nuts, not the real cylinder head nuts. And I gotta find my wrench turning apparatus, which I left on the engine. All right, move you guys back. So that was a kind of a close-up of circlip action. And then we'll just rotate this bad boy over. So that's pretty much TDC there. We'll grab another one. Same deal. So this is where you got to make sure you're building right to left or left to right, however you want to do it, doesn't matter. But you have to be consistent. My wife always tells me I'm very inconsistent, but I'm consistent when it comes to this. Because if you jam yourself up, you're taking everything back apart. This is always the hardest part, is finding the center of that bushing. Don't ever tap those. I always, if it's not going, it's you, it's not the engine. So I don't ever tap those or hit those in. Just find a different angle and a different hand position and good to go. It's actually pretty easy. And when you're putting these in here, see how you have the recess and a recess there? You want to make sure that your release all line up with your head gasket. One time I was putting one of these engines together and I was so concerned on what I was doing here that I got it all together and I forgot to put in my engine tins. Take it all back apart. It's like forgetting to put your shrink wrap in after you made the world's best solder. I put cam towers on. I forgot to put the oil returns in. These little magnets are super strong. So see how if that thing springs back, I'm out of the way here. And it's almost impossible to, don't say that, but it's almost impossible to make a mistake. And you could do the whole saran wrap and all that stuff, but we ain't got time for that. All right, so that side's done, and we'll move to the other side. I'm just making sure my gaskets are good here. Find a different place for my light. Oh my God. That's the problem with aluminum, nothing's magnetic. We'll rotate this guy down. Lose our light again. The hard part is, I need to be right where that camera is to see, but we gotta have the people see. People gotta see, right? I can't see, it's so dark. See, I just messed up, I'm going the wrong way. Remember how I said we were building right to left? That's a good thing for the YouTube guys. And I went over here and I'm building right to left, but this side of the engine I'm building left to right. So I almost made a mistake and put that circlip in without paying attention to where I need to be. So we need to rotate again. We need to start on cylinder number 4. Yep, we need to start on cylinder 4. We'd have been taking circlips back out. All right, so let's put this one in the right hole. Look at that, pops right in. Ha! Imagine that. You go in the right hole and it goes quicker. What a concept. This stuff is all about a routine. You got to get yourself in a groove and get yourself in a routine. Because if you don't, you're reaching for the wrong thing, you're doing the wrong thing. Somebody's asking you a question. So you gotta be in a good routine and have a good rhythm when you're doing these guys. All right, so that one's at TDC. Yeah, rhythm, mechanics, or any kind of production style stuff. It's all about the rhythm and the flow. And when you get out of rhythm is when you start to make mistakes. And mistakes can be super costly for time. So, those are good. I was about to ask Mrs. Olsen to go to drawer number 17 and grab some blue nuts. No, that's why I just didn't even bother. Yep. All right, last one. Everything feels like it's moving pretty nice, which is good. Let's see if this last one's gonna fight us. You know what they say, Janet? You shouldn't be getting debris in your engine, but we got, it's like a CSI crime scene over here. All right, so last one, last circlip here. I'll get this bad boy in here. And then, that felt good. This one's actually not seated, so I need to seat it the rest of the way. There we go. And pistons are in, what we'll do is we'll bust out the comment generator. There's a lot of people that don't like the fact that I spin these engines over, but I do. And I just do that just to double check myself that I have no high spots or anything. I don't know why it's a problem to spin an engine over, but apparently it is. But nice and free, one-handed. To me, that feels good, no drag. All right, let's get the heads on. So for cylinder heads, what I like to do is take a little rag, got some oil and stuff in there from putting all the pistons in, and then we'll pop this guy off and put our firing rings in. Watch them be the wrong size. That'd be hilarious. It's always something like this where you get ready to put them in and they're like the wrong size, or those are good. And then we'll slap our heads on. Obviously all this stuff goes in dry. So we got cylinder heads on, and then we got to throw in our nuts. So how I do my nuts is I just grab it in there, kind of twist it out. There's always that one that fights you, which is this one. They're all seated down. But basically I just shove all brand new nuts, make sure those are seated down. And then like I talked about before, we have our other nuts, lubrication already on them. So these guys, I just do the spray and pray. I just get it pointed towards the hole and just shoot it in there really quick before it has a chance to fall and get sideways. A little trick I found to be kind of useful is you just get it in there like that and go really fast. It'll save. All these little tricks like that saves you 20 seconds here, 10 seconds here, 15 seconds there. It all adds up at the end of the year. That just comes from thousands of reps. That should be the last one. We gotta clean our hands. Yeah, so here I just used my Mac X12 TMG. It's just a 3/8 speed handle. And then basically I go till it just starts to tighten down a little bit and back off a quarter turn. Probably use a gun on this. I don't. I'm old school. You see how that head started to torque down just a little bit? You don't want these tight, because if you have these tight, you'll never get the cam tower on. The next thing we'll do is we'll put our oil tubes in. All right, so I always replace these. I always put new tubes in. It's just, I don't know. That's like, if those things leak, it's terrible. So then I use True Glide, just a little synthetic grease, O-ring grease. Grease these bad boys up, inside and outside. Get your hands all nice and dirty and slimy and greasy. All right, so there's one. I put all my O-rings on at the same time. I messed that one up. I like these little jigs because it makes somewhat of a pain in the ass job a little easier. All right, so those guys are all done. So we're gonna put our engine tins in and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so what we gotta get done now is, there we go. make a mess. What we gotta get done now is we gotta get our engine tins on. You do not want to forget these things. There would be a very bad, I've had those. I've done that before where I've forgotten to put these puppies on after you just did the most perfect sealant job in the world. And you want to talk about frustrating? That's frustrating, buddy. I think it's the equivalent of doing the perfect shrink wrap job and not putting your shrink wrap on, or a perfect soldering job, not putting your solder on. So that one's that side. We got the middle. We got the end. So basically you have one end, another end, and two middles. So a lot of times we'll powder coat these, but sometimes it's not in the guy's budget to do a full engine restoration, and that's not what we're doing to this one. Making it work and making it not leak. These are always a bitch to get in. Not fun. I'll start with the center one. I'll start with the middle. This is how we get bloody fingers, is using these springs. All right, so there's that one. You grab another center one. This one goes in like that. I'll fight this one. There we go. Perfect. Last one. And these have the cutouts. These have the cutouts that go around the chain box. So what I like to do is I like to push. I like to get it in there. You can push it in a little bit. So you're not bending these guys so much. Get it under there. And make sure all these are snapped in good, which they are. Then we can rotate this bad boy back up. And get our oil tubes in. On these guys, just make sure I'm going straight. Perfect. All right, so now we are ready for our cam towers. So we'll get over here and we'll get that prepped. So I've already pre-cleaned all this stuff, but we're gonna take a rag and just make sure that we're got a couple little pieces here that I'm gonna grab with a little carbon scraper. A couple little pieces of old sealant. These carbon scrapers are great because they're bi-directional. They're Mueller cubes. You can go bi-directional with them. Big flat surface, so you're not messing anything up. That looks good. Maybe a little bit right there. That should be good to go. Let's grab some sealant. All right, so here I use Worth DOS flange sealant. It's not 574, the Loctite 574. You can use it, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a lot cheaper. This flange sealant, I think, I'd have to check with the purchasing department, but I think it's around 80 bucks a bottle. So it's not cheap stuff. But I've never had any kind of leak with it. So for me, I don't like to chimp or skimp, I guess I could say. I don't like to skimp on inferior, or I like to use nice stuff. So I just do that, and I just grab a little acid brush. That's not going to be enough. Put some on our brush, get our brush primed. And you don't need a lot of sealant. I've seen guys just cake this stuff on here, thinking sort of more is better. More is not better when it comes to this stuff. You just need a tiny, tiny film. I've seen people put this on with a little tiny syringe, never done that before and just lay, you know, like a bead down it. I've never done that. I've always just done it this way. It works for me. So I just take this brush and just dab straight down just to try to get it evened up a little bit. You gotta be careful with these acid brushes. Sometimes it'll leave some hairs behind. That's picking up some kind of little hair right there. So like I said, you don't need much. This is definitely one of those situations where less is a good thing. Now it's designed, it doesn't harden unless there's an absence of oxygen. So if you do have some that squishes out, and you want a little bit of squish, if you do have some that squishes out, it won't harden up in your oil galleys. Do not use RTV. Whatever you do, do not use RTV. So I'm gonna call that good to go. Bring you guys over here so you can see. So we'll go the right direction here. Basically what I'm just doing is I'm just making sure I'm going down straight. What I do until I get all my hardware situated, I leave this little gap so it's sitting up on the dowels. You see here how it's sitting up on the dowels, and I wait until I get all my hardware situated where I need to be, and then I'll slam it home. So let me grab my hardware bins. So we're gonna slam these bad boys down. That looks good. So these get small wave washers on the internal ones in here, and non-nylock nuts. And the reason for that is there's not enough engagement to put a nylock nut on there. I'm just trying to concentrate here and not drop anything. All right, so there's that. I'll start these internal nuts here. I'll get everything started finger tight, just a couple threads on, and then we'll grab the gun and bust these guys down. All right, so those guys are in there. And I have thread engagement up here. So up here I use nylocks. Absolutely no reason. Even if you use a non-nylock nut, I don't think it would, I've never seen one come loose. There's so many. The torque is, you know, the torque is decent on these. I can't remember what the torque is. I have to look it up in the book. I think it's 18 foot-pounds, if I remember correctly. These bad boys need to come down a little bit. Grab a gun and a 13. I'm gonna start from the middle out. I need more nuts there. And then the top three inner ones are gonna get the Allen head one. Okay, so I will grab a torque wrench and torque these guys. Snap on, set to 18 foot-pounds. I'm just gonna run back down here. Same thing, start here. Perfect, so that's good. All right, so we gotta get our cylinder heads torqued. So the first step is 10 Newton meters. So it's 10. So I use my little quarter drive for this guy. Just because it's 10 Newton meters, it's basically nothing. You can hear the gasket crushing as you're starting to tighten it down. It's a three-part gasket with a little it's got the ring inside, almost like an oil ring. So you're gonna get everything to 10 Newton meters here, and then grab the 3/8 torque wrench and go to the 32. So the way this is this is done in a star pattern, you know, from the, starting with the inner cylinder head to the outer cylinder head. So what I do at this point in time, I just make sure I'm at 10, make sure I didn't forget anything. That one's got a little squish. You don't have to go in the star pattern when you're just running down the heads like this. At least I don't. Maybe it makes a difference, but it's such. I'm just basically discount double checking myself and making sure I didn't miss anything. So there's 10, and then we need to go 32. So there's 32. Like I said, I roll through this twice. Just because when you start, it feels like, well, when you start with the inside one, for some reason, because of the way you torque it down, it's just, I'm anal. So then these should all be tight. And I'm, you know, it's not fully torqued here, but I'm moving it in microscopic amounts. I mean, it's 1/8 of a turn or something like that. When you have the regular mating surface gaskets, like, you know, where it's just metal on metal instead of these with the crush ring, you don't have to go through it as many times. But the crush ring ones, I like to go through it 3 or 4 times. So these are all getting pretty tight. Yeah, so I'm gonna call that good to go. Like I said, when you're doing the ones that have where it's just metal to metal, you don't have to go crazy like that. It's just these crush ones. I like to go through it 3 or 4 different times and make sure that I'm fully crushed down. So I'm gonna get the other side done, and then we'll pick back up.